Gibraltar is a British overseas territory located at the southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula. It has an area of and is bordered to the north by Spain. The landscape is dominated by the Rock of Gibraltar, at the foot of which is a densely populated town area, home to over 32,000 people, primarily Gibraltarians. In 1704, Anglo-Dutch forces captured Gibraltar from Spain during the War of the Spanish Succession on behalf of the Habsburg claim to the Spanish throne. The territory was ceded to Great Britain in perpetuity under the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713. During World War II it was an important base for the Royal Navy as it controlled the entrance and exit to the Mediterranean Sea, the Strait of Gibraltar, which is only wide at this naval choke point. It remains strategically important, with half the world's seaborne trade passing through the strait. Today Gibraltar's economy is based largely on tourism, online gambling, financial services and cargo ship refueling. The sovereignty of Gibraltar is a point of contention in Anglo-Spanish relations because Spain asserts a claim to the territory. That continues to be its name in Arabic.
History. Prehistory and ancient history.
Evidence of Neanderthal habitation in Gibraltar from around 50,000 years ago has been discovered at Gorham's Cave. The caves of Gibraltar continued to be used by Homo sapiens after the final extinction of the Neanderthals. Stone tools, ancient hearths and animal bones dating from around 40,000 years ago to about 5,000 years ago have been found in deposits left in Gorham's Cave. Numerous potsherds dating from the Neolithic period have been found in Gibraltar's caves, mostly of types typical of the Immerian culture found elsewhere in Andalusia, especially around the town of Almeria, from which it takes its name. There is little evidence of habitation in the Bronze Age, when people had largely stopped living in caves. During ancient times, Gibraltar was regarded by the peoples of the Mediterranean as a place of religious and symbolic importance. The Phoenicians were present for several centuries since around 950 BC, apparently using Gorham's Cave as a shrine to the genius loci, as did the Carthaginians and Romans after them. Gibraltar was known as Monskalp, a name perhaps of Phoenician origin. Monskalp was considered by the ancient Greeks and Romans as one of the pillars of Hercules, after the Greek legend of the creation of the Strait of Gibraltar by Heracles. There is no known archaeological evidence of permanent settlements from the ancient period. They settled at the head of the bay in what is today known as the Campo hinterland of Gibraltar. The town of Ceuta, near the location of the modern Spanish town of San Roque, was founded by the Phoenicians around 950 BC on the site of an early settlement of the native Tertani people.
Middle Ages.
After the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, Gibraltar came briefly under the control of the Vandals, who crossed into Africa at the invitation of Boniface, the count or commander of the territory. The area later formed part of the Visigothic kingdom of Hispania for almost 300 years, from 414 until 711 AD. Following a raid in 710, a predominantly Berber army under the command of Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed from North Africa in April 711 and landed somewhere in the vicinity of Gibraltar, though most likely not in the bay or at the rock itself. Tariq's expedition led to the Islamic conquest of most of the Iberian Peninsula. Monskalp was renamed Jebel Arik, the Mount of Tariq, subsequently corrupted into Gibraltar. The tower of homage of the Moorish castle remains standing today. From 1274 onwards, the town was fought over and captured by the Nasrids of Granada in 1237 and 1374, the Marinids of Morocco in 1274 and 1333 and the Kings of Castile in 1309.
Modern era.
In 1462 Gibraltar was captured by Juan Alonso de Guzman, 1st Duke of Medina Sidonia from the Emirate of Granada. After the conquest, Henry IV of Castile assumed the additional title of King of Gibraltar, establishing it as part of the Comarca of the Campo Llano de Gibraltar. 6 years later, Gibraltar was restored to the Duke of Medina Sidonia, who sold it in 1474 to a group of 4,350 conversos, Christian converts from Judaism from Cordova and Seville, and in exchange for maintaining the garrison of the town for 2 years. after which time they were expelled, returning to their hometowns or moving on to other parts of Spain. In 1501 Gibraltar passed back to the Spanish crown, and Isabella I of Castile issued a royal warrant granting Gibraltar the coat of arms that it still uses. In 1704, during the War of the Spanish Succession, a combined Anglo-Dutch fleet, representing the Grand Alliance, captured the town of Gibraltar on behalf of the Archduke Charles of Austria in his campaign to become King of Spain. Subsequently, most of the population left the town, with many settling nearby. As the Alliance's campaign faltered, the 1713 Treaty of Utrecht was negotiated, which ceded control of Gibraltar to Britain to secure Britain's withdrawal from the war. Unsuccessful attempts by Spanish monarchs to regain Gibraltar were made with the Siege of 1727 and again with the Great Siege of Gibraltar 1779–1783, during the American War of Independence. After the destructive Great Siege, the town was almost entirely rebuilt. Giovanni Maria Boschetti, who arrived in Gibraltar in 1784 as a 25-year-old from Milan, where he is thought to have been a stonemason or engineer, built the victualling yard completed in 1812 and many other buildings. Boschetti is regarded as having been responsible for setting the old town's style, described by Claire Montado, chief executive of the Gibraltar Heritage Trust, as military ordnance-style arched doorways, Italianate stucco relief, Genoese shutters, English Regency ironwork balconies, Spanish stained glass and Georgian sash and casement windows. Its strategic value increased with the opening of the Suez Canal, as it lay on the sea route between the UK and the British Empire east of Suez. In the later 19th century, major investments were made to improve the fortifications and the port.
Contemporary history.
In the 1950s, Franco renewed Spain's claim to sovereignty over Gibraltar and restricted movement between Gibraltar and Spain. Gibraltarians voted overwhelmingly to remain under British sovereignty in the 1967 Gibraltar sovereignty referendum, which led to the passing of the Gibraltar Constitution Order in 1969. In response, Spain completely closed the border with Gibraltar and severed all communication links. The border with Spain was partially reopened in 1982 and fully reopened in 1985 before Spain's accession to the European Community. In the early 2000s, Britain and Spain were in negotiations over a potential agreement that would see them sharing sovereignty over Gibraltar. The government of Gibraltar organized a referendum on the plan, and 99% of the population voted to reject it. The British government committed to respecting the Gibraltarians' wishes. A new constitution order was approved in referendum in 2006. A process of tripartite negotiations started in 2006 between Spain, Gibraltar and the UK, ending some restrictions and dealing with disputes in some specific areas such as air movements, customs procedures, telecommunications, pensions and cultural exchange. In the British referendum on membership of the European Union, 96% of Gibraltarians voted to remain on an 84% turnout. Spain renewed calls for joint Spanish-British control of the peninsula. These were strongly rebuffed by Gibraltar's chief minister. On the 18th of October 2018, however, Spain seemed to have reached an agreement with the United Kingdom in relation to its objections to Gibraltar leaving the EU with the UK, with Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez stating, "Gibraltar will no longer be a problem in arriving at a Brexit deal."
Governance.
Under its current constitution, Gibraltar has almost complete internal self-governance through a parliament elected for a term of up to 4 years. The unicameral parliament presently consists of 17 elected members, and the speaker who is not elected, but appointed by a resolution of the parliament. The government consists of 10 elected members. The head of state is the British monarch, currently Queen Elizabeth II, who is represented by the Governor of Gibraltar. The governor enacts day-to-day matters on the advice of the Gibraltar Parliament, but is responsible to the British government in respect of defence, foreign policy, internal security and general good governance. Judicial and other appointments are made on behalf of the monarch in consultation with the head of the elected government. The 2011 election was contested by the Gibraltar Social Democrats (GSD), Gibraltar Socialist Labour Party (GSLP), Gibraltar Liberal Party (GLP) Alliance and the Progressive Democratic Party (PDP). The PDP was a new party, formed in 2006 and fielded candidates in the 2007 election, but none were elected. The head of government is the chief minister, Fabian Picardo. All local political parties oppose any transfer of sovereignty to Spain, instead supporting self-determination. The main UK opposition parties also support this policy. And it is British government policy not to engage in talks about the sovereignty of Gibraltar without the consent of the people of Gibraltar. Gibraltar was part of the European Union, having joined through the European Communities Act 1972 UK, which gave effect to the Treaty of Accession 1972, as a dependent territory of the United Kingdom under what was then Article 2274 of the treaty establishing the European Community covering special member state territories, with exemption from some areas such as the European Union Customs Union, Common Agricultural Policy and the Schengen area. It is the only British overseas territory which was part of the European Union. After a 10-year campaign for the right to vote in European elections, since 2004 the people of Gibraltar have participated in elections for the European Parliament as part of the South West England constituency. On the 23rd of June 2016 Gibraltar voted along with the United Kingdom in the EU referendum. 96% of its population voted to remain, but the overall United Kingdom result gave a 51.9% majority to leaving the EU. Nevertheless, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez stated on the 18th of October 2018 that the Gibraltar Protocol had been resolved and that Spain will hold no objection when Gibraltar leaves the EU with Britain. Gibraltar was nominated to be included on the United Nations list of non-self-governing territories by the United Kingdom when the list was created in 1946 and has been listed ever since. The government of Gibraltar has actively worked to have Gibraltar removed from the list, and in 2008 the British government declared Gibraltar's continued presence on the list an anachronism. Gibraltar is not a member of the Commonwealth of Nations in its own right and is represented by the United Kingdom but was granted associate membership of the Commonwealth Foundation in 2004. Gibraltar has competed in the Commonwealth Games since 1958.
Geography.
Gibraltar's territory covers and shares a land border with Spain. The town of La Línea de la Concepción, a municipality of the province of Cádiz, lies on the Spanish side of the border. The Spanish hinterland forms the Comarca of Campo de Gibraltar, literally countryside of Gibraltar. The shoreline measures in length. There are two coast sides of Gibraltar, the east side, which contains the settlements of Sandy Bay and Catalan Bay, and the west side, where the vast majority of the population lives. Gibraltar has no administrative divisions but is divided into 7 major residential areas. Having negligible natural resources and few natural freshwater resources, limited to natural wells in the north, until recently Gibraltar used large concrete or natural rock water catchments to collect rainwater. Freshwater from the boreholes is nowadays supplemented by 2 desalination plants, a reverse osmosis plant, constructed in a tunnel within the rock, and a multi-stage flash distillation plant at North Mole. Gibraltar's terrain consists of the Rock of Gibraltar made of Jurassic limestone, and the narrow coastal lowland surrounding it. It contains many tunneled roads, most of which are still operated by the military and closed to the general public.
Climate.
Gibraltar has a Mediterranean climate Köppen climate classification XA, with mild, rainy winters and warm, dry summers. As is the case for nearby Algeciras and Tarifa, summers are significantly cooler and annual temperature more constant than other cities on the southern coast of the Iberian Peninsula because of its position on the Strait of Gibraltar. Rain occurs mainly in winter, with summer being generally dry. Its average annual temperature is about as a daily high and as the overnight low. In the coldest month, January, the high temperature average is and the overnight low is and the average sea temperature is. In the warmest month, August, the daily high temperature is, the overnight low is, and the average sea temperature is.
Flora and fauna.
Over 500 different species of flowering plants grow on the rock. Gibraltar is the only place in Europe where the Gibraltar candytuft Iberis gibraltarica is found growing in the wild. The plant is otherwise native to North Africa. It is the symbol of the Upper Rock Nature Reserve. Olive and pine trees are among the most common of those growing around the rock. Most of the rock's upper area is covered by a nature reserve which is home to around 230 Barbary macaques, the famous apes of Gibraltar, which are actually monkeys. These are the only wild apes or monkeys found in Europe. This species, known scientifically as Macaca sylvanus, is listed as endangered by the UN Red List and is declining. 3/4 of the world population live in the Middle Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Recent genetic studies and historical documents point to their presence on the rock before its capture by the British, having possibly been introduced during the Islamic period. A superstition analogous to that of the ravens at the Tower of London states that if the apes ever leave, so will the British. In 1944, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill was so concerned about the dwindling population of apes that he sent a message to the Colonial Secretary requesting that something be done about the situation. Other mammals found in Gibraltar include rabbits, foxes and bats. Dolphins and whales are frequently seen in the Bay of Gibraltar. Migrating birds are very common and Gibraltar is home to the only Barbary partridges found on the European continent. In 1991, Graham Watson, Gibraltar's MEP, highlighted conservationists' fears that urban development, tourism and invasive plant species were threatening Gibraltar's own plants as well as birds and bat species.
Environment.
In May 2016, a report by the World Health Organization showed that Gibraltar had the worst air quality in any British territory. The report concentrated on PM10 and PM2. 5 pollutants in the air.
Economy.
The British military traditionally dominated Gibraltar's economy, with the naval dockyard providing the bulk of economic activity. This, however, has diminished over the last 20 years, and is estimated to account for only 7% of the local economy, compared to over 60% in 1984. Today, Gibraltar's economy is dominated by 4 main sectors: financial services, online gambling, shipping, and tourism, which includes duty-free retail sales to visitors. The territory also has a small manufacturing sector, with one company supplying ambulances produced from converted SUV vehicles to the United Nations and other agencies. Gibraltar's labor market shows an extremely low unemployment rate of around 1%. Nearly half, 46% of the total employment is covered by frontier workers, employees who are normally resident in Spain but are employed in Gibraltar. The large majority of them, 59%, of Spanish nationality. In the early 2000s, many bookmakers and online gaming operators moved to Gibraltar to benefit from operating in a regulated jurisdiction with a favorable corporate tax regime. This corporate tax regime for non-resident controlled companies was phased out by January 2011 and replaced by a still favorable fixed corporate tax rate of 10%. Tourism is also a significant industry. Gibraltar is a popular port for cruise ships and attracts day visitors from resorts in Spain. The Rock is a popular tourist attraction, particularly among British tourists and residents in the southern coast of Spain. It is also a popular shopping destination, and all goods and services are VAT-free, but may be subject to Gibraltar taxes. Many of the large British high street chains have branches or franchises in Gibraltar, including Morrisons, Marks and Spencer and Mothercare. Branches and franchises of international retailers such as Tommy Hilfiger and Sunglass Hut are also present in Gibraltar, as is the Spanish clothing company Mango. A number of British and international banks have operations based in Gibraltar. Gisk Bank claims to be the oldest bank in the country, based on Gisk's acquisition in 1987 of Banco Galliano, which began operations in Gibraltar in 1855. An ancestor of Barclays, The Anglo-Egyptian Bank entered in 1888, and Credit Foncier, now Credit Agricole, entered in 1920. In 1967, Gibraltar enacted the Companies Taxation and Concessions Ordinance, now an Act, which provided for special tax treatment for international business. This was one of the factors leading to the growth of professional services such as private banking and captive insurance management. Gibraltar has several attractive attributes as a financial center, including a common law legal system and access to the EU single market in financial services. The Financial Services Commission (FSC), which was established by an ordinance in 1989, now an act that took effect in 1991, regulates the finance sector. In 1997, the Department of Trade and Industry established its Gibraltar Finance Center (GFC) division to facilitate the development the financial sector development. Gibraltar has 103 Big Four accounting firm offices per 1,000 population, the second highest in the world after the British Virgin Islands, and 6 banks per 1,000 people, the fifth most banks per capita in the world. There is very significant uncertainty on continuing access to the EU single market after the forthcoming Brexit. In a currency board arrangement, these notes are issued against reserves of sterling. Clearing and settlement of funds is conducted in sterling. Coins in circulation follow British denominations but have separate designs. Unofficially, most retail outlets in Gibraltar accept the euro, though some payphones and the Royal Gibraltar Post Office, along with all other government offices, do not.
Demographics.
Gibraltar is one of the most densely populated territories in the world, with a usually resident population in 2012 of 32,194, equivalent to approximately. The growing demand for space is being increasingly met by land reclamation. Reclaimed land currently comprises approximately 1/10 of the territory's total area.
Ethnic groups.
The demographics of Gibraltar reflect the many European and other economic migrants who came to the Rock over 300 years ago, after almost all of the Spanish population left in 1704. Origin of surnames in the electoral roll by percentages: British 27%, Spanish 26%, mostly Andalusian but also some 2% Menorcan, Genoese and other Italian 15%, Portuguese 15%, and Maltese 8%. There are also small less than 1% populations of other groups such as Moroccans, French, Austrians, Chinese, Japanese, Polish, and Danish. KISS includes all nationalities different from Gibraltarian, UK and other British and Moroccan.
Language.
The official language of Gibraltar is English, and is used by the government and in schools. Most locals are bilingual, also speaking Spanish. However, because of the varied mix of ethnic groups which reside there, other languages are also spoken on the Rock. Berber and Arabic are spoken by the Moroccan community, as are Hindi and Sindhi by the Indian community. Maltese is spoken by some families of Maltese descent. Gibraltarians often converse in Lanito, a vernacular unique to Gibraltar. It is based on Andalusian Spanish with a strong mixture of British English and elements from languages such as Maltese, Portuguese, Genoese Italian and Quechua Judeo-Spanish dialect. Lanito also often involves code switching to English and Spanish. Gibraltarians often call themselves Lanitos.
Religion.
According to the 2012 census, approximately 72.1% of Gibraltarians are Roman Catholics. The 16th century St. Mary the Crowned is the cathedral church of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Gibraltar, and also the oldest Catholic church in the territory. Other Christian denominations include the Church of England's 7%, whose Cathedral of the Holy Trinity is the Cathedral of the Anglican Bishop of Gibraltar in Europe. The Gibraltar Methodist Church, Church of Scotland, various Pentecostal and independent churches mostly influenced by the house church and charismatic movements, as well as a Plymouth Brethren congregation. Several of these congregations are represented by the Gibraltar Evangelical Alliance. The third religion in size is Islam, 3.6% of the population. There is also an established Hindu population 2%, members of the Bahá'í faith and a long-established Jewish community, which, at 763 persons, accounts for 2.4% of the population. On the 31st of March 2015, the government of Gibraltar announced the adoption of the University of Gibraltar Act, and the University of Gibraltar opened in September 2015. Previously, there were no facilities in Gibraltar for full-time higher education, and consequently, all Gibraltarian students studied elsewhere at degree level or its equivalent, and also for certain non-degree courses. The government of Gibraltar operates a scholarship grant system to provide funding for students studying in the United Kingdom. All Gibraltarian students used to follow the UK student loans procedure, applying for a loan from the student loans company, which was then reimbursed in full by the government of Gibraltar. In August 2010, this system was replaced by the direct payment by the government of grants and tuition fees. The overwhelming majority of Gibraltarians continue their studies at university level.
Healthcare.
All Gibraltarians are entitled to health care in public wards and clinics at St. Bernard's Hospital and Primary Health Care Centre. All other British citizens are also entitled to free of charge treatment on the Rock on presentation of a valid British passport during stays of up to 30 days. Other EU nationals are equally entitled to treatment on presentation of a valid European health insurance card. Dental treatment and prescribed medicines are free of charge for Gibraltarian students and pensioners. The Gibraltar Health Authority, established under the Medical Gibraltar Health Authority Act of 1987, is funded through the Gibraltar Group Practice Medical Scheme. It employs around 900 people, handling 37,000 A&E attendances, 40,000 outpatient appointments, and 90,000 GP visits a year. Some specialist care is provided by visiting consultants and in UK and Spanish hospitals. First-line medical and nursing services are provided at the primary care centre, which has 16 GPs, with more specialised services available at St. Bernard's Hospital. A 210-bed civilian hospital opened in 2005. Psychiatric care is provided by King George V Hospital. As of 2012, the authority was responsible for the health of some 27,000 individuals. The GHA and social welfare system are closely based upon their British counterparts, namely the National Health Service. As of 2003, the organisation was funded through roughly £19 million, $27 million of social insurance stamp contributions through the Gibraltar Group Practice Medical Scheme. In September 2014, Egton Medical Information Systems won a contract, worth up to £11.25 meters over 10 years, to deliver an electronic patient record for the Health Service of Gibraltar, including a patient administration system, an emergency department system, e-prescribing and other software from Ascribe, which IMIS bought in September 2013. The A&E unit at St. Bernard's Hospital went live on the 24th of June 2015 using EMIS Symphony, and it is planned that primary and community services and the acute hospital will start to use the Ascribe C-EMIS patient administration system. A community mental health team was established in 2017, and in 2018 the Gibraltar Health Authority School of Health Studies introduced a mental health nursing degree to tackle difficulties in recruiting mental health nurses.
Culture.
The culture of Gibraltar reflects Gibraltarians' diverse origins. While there are Spanish mostly from nearby Andalusia and British influences, the ethnic origins of most Gibraltarians are not confined to these ethnicities. Other ethnicities include Genoese, Maltese, Portuguese, and German. A few other Gibraltar residents are Jewish of Sephardic origin, Moroccan, or Indians. British influence remains strong, with English being the language of government, commerce, education and the media. Gibraltar's first sovereignty referendum is celebrated annually on Gibraltar National Day, the 10th of September. It is a public holiday, during which most Gibraltarians dress in their national colours of red and white. Until 2016, the tradition had been to also release 30,000 similarly coloured balloons, which represented the people of Gibraltar. However, This tradition has now been ended because of the threat that it poses to wildlife, particularly marine. The 300th anniversary of Gibraltar's capture was celebrated in 2004 on Tercentenary Day, the 4th of August, when in recognition of and with thanks for its long association with Gibraltar, the Royal Navy was given the freedom of the city of Gibraltar, and a human chain of Gibraltarians dressed in red, white and blue, linked hands to encircle the rock. On the 4th of June 2012, the Gibraltar Diamond Jubilee Flotilla, inspired by the Thames Diamond Jubilee pageant, celebrated 60 years of the Queen's reign. The Gibraltar Broadcasting Corporation operates a television and radio station on UHF, VHF and medium wave. The radio service is also internet streamed. Special events and the daily news bulletin are streamed in video. The other local radio service is operated by the British Forces Broadcasting Service, which also provides a limited cable television network, TEM Forces. The largest and most frequently published newspaper is the Gibraltar Chronicle, Gibraltar's oldest established daily newspaper and the world's second oldest English-language newspaper to have been in print continuously with daily editions 6 days a week. Panorama is published on weekdays, and 7 days. The New People and Gibsport are weekly. Native Gibraltarians have produced some literature of note. The first in fiction was probably Hector Lecoude's 1929 novel Barbarita, written in Spanish, chronicling the largely autobiographical adventures of a young Gibraltarian man. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, several anthologies of poetry were published by Leopoldo Sanguinetti, Albert Joseph Patron, and Alberto Pizarro. The 1960s were largely dominated by the theatrical works of Elia Cruz and his two highly acclaimed Spanish-language plays La Lola se va pa Londra and Connie con Calma Camera en el Comdor. In the 1990s, the Gibraltarian man of letters Mario Arroyo published Profiles 1994, a series of bilingual meditations on love, loneliness and death. Trino Cruz is a bilingual poet originally writing English but now mainly in Spanish, who also translates Maghreb poetry. Of late there have been works by the essayist Mary Kiap, such as her volume of essays Cabbages and Kings 2006, and by M.G. Sanchez, author of the books Rock Black, 10 Gibraltarian Stories 2008 and Diary of a Victorian Colonial 2009. Mary Kiap and Sam Benedy have also published a series of detective books centered on the character of the 19th-century Gibraltarian sleuth Bresson O. Musicians from Gibraltar include Charles Ramirez, the first guitarist invited to play with the Royal College of Music Orchestra, successful rock bands like Breed 77, Melon Diesel and Taxi, while Gibraltarian bassist Glenn Diani played for Irish, British and new metal group 1 Minute Silence. Albert Hammond had top 10 hits in the UK and US and has written many songs for international artists such as Whitney Houston, Tina Turner, and Julio Iglesias. Gibraltarian cuisine is the result of a long relationship between the Andalusian Spaniards and the British, as well as the many foreigners who made Gibraltar their home over the past 3 centuries. The culinary influences include those from Malta, Genoa, Portugal, Andalusia, and Britain. This marriage of tastes has given Gibraltar an eclectic mix of Mediterranean and British cuisine. Profiteroles, a French choux pastry ball with a sweet filling of whipped cream, is considered to be Gibraltar's national dish. These are often served after a meal including calentita, a baked bread-like dish made with chickpea flour, water, olive oil, salt and pepper.
Cultural references.
The outbreak of yellow fever in 1804 is the subject of Letitia Elizabeth Landon's 1836 poem. She published 2 further poetical illustrations on Gibraltar the following year, and
Sport.
In 2007, there were 18 Gibraltar sports associations with official recognition from their respective international governing bodies. Others have submitted applications for recognition which are being considered. The government supports the many sporting associations financially. Gibraltar also competes in the biannual Island Games, which it hosted in 1995 and again in 2019. Football is a popular sport in Gibraltar. The Gibraltar Football Association applied for full membership of UEFA, but their bid was turned down in 2007 in a contentious decision. Gibraltar was confirmed as UEFA's 54th member on the 24th of May 2013 as a result of Court of Arbitration for Sport (CAS) arbitration and played in Euro 2016 qualifications. Their first match was a 0-0 draw against Slovakia. Gibraltar's national team won its first ever match in UEFA competition on the 13th of October 2018, beating Armenia in the 2018-19 UEFA Nations League D. Subsequently, Gibraltar applied for FIFA membership, but this bid was also turned down. On the 2nd of May 2016, the CAS upheld the appeal filed by the Gibraltar Football Association regarding its request to become a full-time member of FIFA. CAS ordered FIFA to stop blocking Gibraltar's application for membership and allow it without delay. Cricket enjoys popularity in Gibraltar. The Gibraltar national cricket team won the European Cricket Championship Division 2 in 2000 and 2002. Rugby union is fairly popular and one of the fastest growing team sports. Gibraltar Rugby Football Union applied for membership of Europe's governing body for rugby. Gibraltar is believed to be the birthplace of the rugby variant tag rugby. The Gibraltar Rifle Association (GRA) was Gibraltar's most successful team at the 2009 Island Games, earning 4 gold medals. Darts is also a popular sport, with the Gibraltar Darts Association a full member of World Darts Federation since 1977, running leagues and other regular tournaments. In 2010, Gibraltar hosted and won the Mediterranean Cup, competing against